Hello and welcome back, dweebs. Hello, headbug. Good call. Grab your morning coffee. Welcome, chat. I've done so many preview reviews in the last few days that it was very hard not to say welcome back to the next installment of preview review. That's not what we're doing today at all, but there is a new one out this morning and another coming this afternoon. So if you've been enjoying those, fret not. We've got one more today, one more tomorrow, and I just reached out to James about a list of a few that I think the two of us should do together. So good morning, everyone. I hope you've been enjoying Agatha all along and the Penguin. I know I have. We will continue to keep the format we've kept so far. I'm not going to change anything up as far as who goes first. So we will be doing Agatha all along first for the first half an hour. So if you happen to be here specifically for the Penguin, we'll see you in about 30 minutes or so. If you could leave me a like on your way out, that would be great. But for Agatha fans, I'm willing to earn it. So let's get underway here in just a couple of minutes. I am going to give a little slow roll entry time. I know that this is a very random time for us to be starting this show. Clout routers might be used to a 10:30 Sunday morning start, but this was a little chaotic over the last couple of days. So give everybody a chance to get here. So I'd love to hear your thoughts before we dive in on either Agatha or the Penguin. If you have liked it, any theories, we will be going full on into spoilers right away because this week I have some questions for all of you as it pertains to each show. So as soon as we cross that spoiler threshold, we're going right in. I want to give you plenty of times to answer some of the questions that I have for you while we talk our way through the episode. So final warning to any folks that haven't watched this stuff yet, now would be a good time to get out. Again, recommendation from me, thumbs up. I would say those in the chat will probably back that up, at least for the shows that they've been watching. I have yet to have anyone tell me that they don't like the Penguin. Agatha has been a little more of a mixed response, but I would say it's generally still been very positive. So that was your warning. Let me get the banner up here. We're going to be spoilers from here on out. We ran out the cuss word timer, so that feels like a good enough time to say, let's just dig in and start right away. And before we do, Headbook says, every time I think I know what is going on with both shows, they blow my mind with a twist. Yeah, see, I think that was a previous theme of this show already, where we talk about both shows, where it was like, oh, hey, plot twist. They're doing some things earlier, maybe, than we thought they would do. And then these two episodes come along, and it's interesting how many parallels there are, because we have double flashback episodes. Both of them are very flashback heavy, and they both turn, at least by title card, as far as that goes, they turn secondary characters and put them in the forefront. And by the end of each episode, I felt like we have new main characters now, and hence the name of today's episode on the show. And agreed with what Headbook says. I still don't know where a lot of it is going. I think at this point, I have a better idea of where Agatha is going, which makes sense. We're 6 episodes in instead of 4. We have less time to work with. But the Penguin, my God, sometimes I feel bad that I do these two shows together, because week after week, it starts to feel like they each deserve their own focused time. Where it's, you're not talking about one while thinking about, can't wait to talk about this over here. Because Penguin has been one of my favorite TV shows in a while. I really look forward to discussing that one with you. And while we're here talking about it, we will be breaking the series apart for the finale. So I believe I'm going to have James with me for the Penguin season review finale once all things are said and done. And shout out to Headbug in the chat, who is going to come help me make sure we tie up all the loose ends, Easter eggs, and comic references to Agatha all along. I know she's got more knowledge about this show than I do, certainly. So we got James working on getting caught up on the Penguin, and then Headbug and I will be breaking down Agatha all along. So thank you to both of you. I'm very excited to do that, and I can't wait to spend some time just giving each show it's my complete attention, because it part of me wishes these things weren't running at the same time, because it would have been great content just to go one episode at a time through each. But here we are. I'm still having fun. Hope you all are too. So, the premise of this episode of Agatha All Along is that we are finally getting the backstory for Billy. We can all call him Billy now. We don't have to pretend like we didn't see Funko Pop releases or someone being named in the subtitles. That somebody should be reviewing that. Mini rant. Sorry, squirrel. Not really. The fact that some people found out who this character was because it was in the subtitles is just bonkers. Like, you gotta QA that stuff, man. How much money do you spend on these projects? And even though this was a cheaper one, like, come on, dude, you gotta have your shit together. And we made it almost 7 minutes for you to put anything in the curse jar. But back to the episode. Now we all can acknowledge that we know it's Billy. Headbug also found out through the fan wiki. Geez, yeah. I mean, it's hard not to have things spoiled these days, isn't it? You just gotta avoid, if you know you like a show, you gotta try to avoid interacting with that studio or anybody involved in sharing information about that show leading up, and then just hope that the algorithm spares you of any soul crushing spoilers. Now, there were some soul crushing moments in this episode of Agatha as well. So before we get into all of this breakdown, I have questions for those of you who have watched. Let me know if you think this first one's a two-parter, because it seems like Billy is after Tommy at the end of the road. So I think that one's a pretty easy part one. Is the goal at the end of the road here for Billy? Is it just Tommy? Maybe that defines it a little bit more. And then um is Tommy is he actually going to be at the end of the road, I guess, is going to be the next question for you for that part two. And when it comes to Billy's past, um has Rio just known who he was all along, or would the sigil work on her as well? Because I believe that will be revealed. But if she is who we think she is, which would be this show's version of Mistress Death, I'm assuming the Marvel television. So I don't know if it's the MCU. I assume she would be playing that character throughout the entire shared universe. So wouldn't that mean that she would also know who Billy was? And we see a couple of instances in the show where members of the Coven ran across Billy in their day to day prior to all of this stuff going on. So obviously the sigil had warped their memory, but would that work on Rio is the question. So does Rio know who Billy is this whole time, and is she just confused as to, hey, that kid's dead? What's going on? Good morning, Zach. Appreciate you, brother. Shout out to Zach, the boss man over at Carnage Media, with my dear friend Wade as well. Thank you, boys, for keeping me busy. I got pay-per-views coming every other week for the rest of the year. That's going to be awesome. Pivot back to this, though. Thank you, Zach, for hopping into the chat, brother. Let's see what Headbug's got some thoughts on this question. That's his true intention, to find his brother. I think the road will reveal where Tommy is. Yeah, will we get some big cliffhanger going into, what are they calling it? Vision Quest, which is going to be the third series in the WandaVision trilogy. So some very interesting things, but in order to really provide that context, in case some of you are just hanging out and wanting to hear thoughts about the show and aren't watching it, hey, I won't sit here and say I haven't done that. James A. Janice has helped me decide a time or two if I was actually going to watch a horror movie that was on my watch list. So I'm here for it. I'm all about it. So let me get through our obligatory uh, plot rundown. Feel free to add anything if I miss or if I gloss over a scene that you really want me to spend some more time on. Get in the chat. Let me know. That's what we're here to do. Talk about the parts of the show that you want to talk about, not just what I have written down here. So, as we get this flashback, it explains to you, to give it the broad strokes, how Billy got here, why he ended up in Agatha's home, and why he is on this journey to the road. So we begin almost immediately with the reveal that yes, this is Billy Kaplan is the vessel. He is having his bar mitzvah, and so there's a bunch of pamphlets laid out, and he goes through the party scene. We have some moments of endearment between him and his parents, him being Billy Kaplan still at this moment. It takes place during the events of WandaVision. So, as it will play out, as we will see it play out, Billy's party is the night that the hex ends and WandaVision has its finale, and the boys are no more because the hex goes away. So we have a moment in after the religious ceremony. For those of you who don't know and didn't watch the show, because I'll be honest, I've never been to one. But bar mitzvah has the church ceremony, and then they have what essentially looks like a prom, but it's just there, or a sweet 16 if your parents had it like that. But it's just sort of looks like a homecoming dance, but it's just there to celebrate this one kid. And they have a bunch of tents around. It's not just a dance floor and food. He had some other entertainment. It's important to note that Billy Kaplan was into witchcraft and this type of stuff ahead of time. So perhaps that made him a more preferred vessel, because theoretically speaking, he was also the closest body. So he couldn't have been more convenient than he already was, but probably wasn't the only person to have perished in that moment in the United States. There probably could have been a hospital nearby that Billy's soul could have found its way to, but he may have been attracted to this one for reasons beyond it was right across the street from the hex. But honestly, this feels like I'm reaching, but the context, it's there. Like the context exists that Billy was into this stuff. It's on his bedroom wall. So they did that for a reason. Maybe it was just coincidence. There might not be any deeper meaning behind it. They just wanted him to be uh, a witch positive person, so that it just so they could put cool signs in the background related to witchcraft stuff. I'm not. It could be that. It could just been some really hyped up set designers being like, "Ooh, we're gonna make this place all witchy." And the accident is caused by a emergency alert that tells everyone at the party. They get an amber alert of sorts. Uh, but actually, no, it wasn't. It wasn't even that. The police call the dad somehow, some way. They are informed. Everybody's got to go. There's an issue with the anomaly. There's a cool moment where, as the family is driving away, I have skipped a part. We're gonna have to go back. The family is driving away. You can hear Wanda and Vision from episode 1. You can hear their conversation, but I have to backtrack because I skipped one of the biggest parts of the whole damn episode. Before they get the announcement, Billy wanders into a palm reading situation, one of those tents, and wouldn't you know it, it's Lilia there. We said he would meet multiple members of the coven. Sometimes, literally, in one instance, it's just he watches Jen's YouTube videos, so he was aware of her. No evidence yet that she was aware of him. And Lilia is there, and she does a reading and notices that the boy's lifelines are split in two. As I look at my palm, as if I understand what any of this shit means. I don't know why I'm doing that. Just a little performative acting here. Yeah, see, look at that. See, I also have two split timelines here. It's because, as I've mentioned multiple times, I was Mandela affected into this universe sometime around 2014, I think. Yeah. So, anywho, back to the show. Billy has a very unfortunate reading. The tower reversed, two lifelines split, and the fact that Lilia says to him, "Kid, live life to the fullest." She basically, her advice to him is something that you see someone paint into their living room. Her advice, like, live life, love, seize every moment, grab life by the fullest. She's essentially telling this dude, without telling him, that she knows he's might not be here for very long. So enjoy the now, kiddo. And as if on autopilot, she draws this sigil and sticks it into Billy's coat pocket because he is very uncomfortable. He leaves, but he leaves his coat pocket sitting on the back of the chair. So she draws this sigil, plops it into his pocket, and then wakes up from her trance to realize there's a jacket here. She gives it to an adult. Help, I need an adult. A child left their blazer in here. And then the adult says, which kid? And she says, I don't remember. And I feel like she was saved by the anomaly happening, because if there wasn't a uh, less comfortable answer for me to hear from an adult working in a dark tent at either my son or a friend of my son's bar mitzvah, I think I'd have some follow-up questions. What do you mean you don't remember? What were you doing in here, lady? Huh? So, okay. Saved by the bell. Wanda ruined several lives that day, but she might have saved Lilia's. Anywho, so that gets us kind of back up to speed after that moment where she has some divination. She even says to Billy, "Are we looking behind or ahead?" But she has another kind of moment, and unlike Agatha in previous episodes, Billy has no idea at this point, especially not Billy Kaplan. He just thinks she's being a weird lady. And so now we're back in the car. Daddy Kaplan, Father Kaplan, Papa Kaplan, rule of threes, turns the radio off because he doesn't want to hear about the 1950s, my husband and his indestructible head. And then mom is almost in an accident, which really seems to be at the other driver's fault. Either they too were freaked out by what was happening in Westview and they were looking out their window while driving, or fidgeting with their radio, or maybe it was Rio. I have no idea, but they were driving on the wrong side of the road. That's a detail Headbug might not have picked up on. Yeah, that was incorrect here in America. You drive on the right side of the road. And I mean that literally, not as if we are correct and you are wrong. I will save those jokes for another day. So they smash into a tree, which makes this crime scene uh, fit what was happening in the first episode when Agatha's talking about two airbags being deployed and there being blood in the back seat. That's a reference to this accident. I know, or at least we expect, based on the tips of the fingers and the wardrobe, that dead body at the beginning of episode one was meant to represent Wanda. At least that's what I had assumed, envisioned this entire time. But perhaps it was Billy instead, because there are, I don't, that's not the only bit of parallel information where maybe thought it was about Wanda, but actually seemed that first dream sequence of her being a detective might have been more about Billy, which we will get to because we finally get Billy's perspective of all of that. Early on, well, I guess it's almost instantaneous that Billy then has he dies in the back seat, and then Billy Maximoff comes in, and his first words are Tommy. And I'm going to pause for a second and check out chat real quick, and then we'll jump back in. I did not. It looked right. Yeah, I did think it was a great touch. Headbug says it was insane that Lilia was the one who cast the sigil. I didn't see that one coming. I fully expected it to be Wanda or Agatha. If it was Agatha, it was going to be sort of for her own protection, knowing that there was a witch of equal, at least potential, if not strength, as her. Like she lost to Wanda, so it would make sense for her to not want Wanda's kid to know who he was and know of his abilities so that he could make her life worse in the future. Headbug says again about the sigil here. We didn't see the sigil being active around Rio, but she never asked who he was either. So it's possible she knew his identity. There is a link to Rio with the black heart again. And that's a great one. I'm glad that you mentioned that because I forgot to write that one down in my notes. And I think it's an important piece of information. And we're about to that point in the story anyway. So I'm going to quickly get us there. And then we're going to come back to that comment. Um, so Billy comes back as new Billy. When he's in the hospital, he realizes he can hear his parents' thoughts, and it's stressing him out a bit. When they finally take him home, the weirdness continues. His parents obviously don't understand how their son came back, and he doesn't act like himself at all. His dad even tests him at one point and calls him buddy, just to see if Billy would point out that he's never called him buddy before. And so being a mind reader, Billy very quickly figures out that his best option is just going to be to go study his former self, learn everything he can about it so he can start acting like that person and not have his parents worry so much, because it does seem, because he seems like a nice kid, right? First of all, I guess I should lead with that. But B, if you have an uncontrolled ability to hear people's thoughts when their emotions are too strong, and you know you can't control your ability, I think it only stands to reason the next thing you would try to do is temper those emotions and get to where those people that are close to you aren't feeling so strongly all the time, so you can hear your own thoughts occasionally. So he probably had multiple reasons for just saying, I'm going to go ahead and play along for now while I look into who I really am. We get uh, scenes with his boyfriend, Eddie, which is a pivot from the comics, not in the sense of Wiccan having a boyfriend. He has a boyfriend in the comics, but it is the Hulkling, if memory serves. So no problems with it not being the Hulkling, at least as we know. Now we also now know that everybody could be a scroll. So maybe that'll be something that gets revealed at some point. Anywho, but there's another moment of mind reading where Billy finds out Eddie wants to say I love you. Man, what a stressful moment for any teenager. I don't care. I don't care who you like or think you love. By God, dude, we all probably felt that one a little bit. What an awkward, awful time to be alive in your teens. Jesus, everything's so important, but in reality, none of it is. Gee, you can't regulate your emotions. Awful. This kid can read minds. I feel so bad for him. You thought it couldn't get worse, and there it goes. But he has the moment where he reveals himself to Eddie in a sense of, I don't know who I really am. I died. And when I came back, I wasn't myself, all of this stuff. And I have to tell you because I love you too. And, so there's a hint that he can read Eddie's mind, all this good stuff. But hey, you know what? They have their moment. This whole thing, I think, is designed to reestablish Billy as the main character and get you rooting for him. So for him to have these people that he cares about and all this stuff to potentially put them in danger, which is what we're about to get. That's why we got our mysterious man here over my right shoulder, left side of your screen. Um, as after Billy tells Eddie what's going on, they decide to meet someone during their investigation. So let me move myself momentarily here so you can see it. There he is in a very deep throat esque meetup, and I mean that in an All the President's Men sort of way, a Richard Nixon sort of way. Okay. uh, including that now for when I inevitably have to ask someone on YouTube to manually review this because it is not the gross stuff you're thinking about. I can't help the fact that the informant named themselves that. Okay, it was a different time. Ralph Boner with an H is our informant, if you will. So he shows up, tells the kids a little bit about the story, what it was like being under Wanda's control, and how he really didn't enjoy any of it at all. It still messes with his mind currently. You can see the chicken bone cross that he put on his hat, I assume, in an attempt to defend himself from the next time a witch or magic user tries to get into his head. We find out that he was the one who killed Sparky at Agatha's command. And yeah, somehow we also learned that he had to have inherited that home because, I mean, how's a failed actor afford all that? What an interesting situation that poor guy is in. But that gives us some more insight. It's a big government cover up. The official story, as Eddie brings to the narrative, is that it was Anne, forgive me, Anne Avengers training gone wrong. That's the official story. And only Bonerific 69 on Dreadit, which was uh, a nice touch. Gotta love a spooky conspiracy theory only website called Dreadit. Good work, gang. I liked that a lot. And so after we get the information that is basically nothing from Ralph for us as a viewer, uh, he starts to stress out to the point that he just like, don't say Agatha Harkness. Don't mention Agatha Harkness. No whammies, no whammies. And of course, Billy is going to ask about Agatha Harkness, and that is where they get their lead to try to figure out who might be involved or behind some of this. And we get one of my favorite sequences in the episode where you see all of the different things Agatha has been doing since the what was it 1600s. When was the Salem witch trials? What she's been up to, a lot, up to it an awful lot. This one, from things like being at the Titanic, being a survivor at the Titanic, surviving the Hindenburg, which to me leads me to believe that her and Rio's dating involved just uh, Agatha was that spouse or significant other that just traveled along on all the business trips. Like, hey, well, we don't have kids, whatever. We don't have cats or a dog. I'll just go with you in all your business trips, and then we can have fun after hours. And that was kind of the vibe that I got there doing this whole Bonnie and Bonnie situation. But the only thing they were stealing was souls, and not only were they stealing souls together, but Agatha perhaps stole a man from Dolly Parton. That's my favorite part, was the photo of Dolly Parton slapping Agatha and it saying like the real Jolene or something like that. It was hilarious. I thought that was a lot of fun. Pause real quick to shout out Wade. Hey, appreciate you, brother. This, if you do have Disney Plus, I think this might be a show to help you get back in it a little bit. It really depends on what you like about the MCU. I enjoyed WandaVision coming into it. So, and I also had incredibly low expectations for this show. So it really made life easy for me out here. But I think you would probably enjoy this. And I assume the MCU will pick up some steam once they get closer to the next Doom movie, Doctor Doom, uh, starring Tony Stark. That'll be fun. I've had that rant before. We'll do that another time. But thank you, Wade. Shout out to Wade once again. To any of you folks out here who aren't already following Carnage Media on our YouTube channel or at Carnage Media PPV on social medias, please do that. Zach and Wade do some great work, and I am honored to be able to call the action and be involved as a part of that team. So if you ever want to hear me at work, you can go check that out on Carnage Media. We've got some free prelim fights right now, as well as highlights and fights from older pay-per-views. So go check that out. Thank you for sitting through the ad break. Not to worry, Agatha fans. Looks like we're running a little longer than 30 minutes today. So if you showed back up expecting Penguin talk, you're still going to get it. It just might be a little while. I am in no rush today. So we have just under 2 hours before the next NFL kickoff time starts. My fantasy lineups are pretty locked in. I already dealt with my morning game, courtesy of the Jacksonville Jaguars and New England Patriots. A whole lot of them, a bunch of bums, but that's a different show. That's not for now. So we have gotten through the acknowledgement by Billy, the understanding of who Agatha Harkness might be. I'm sure I missed a couple of cool references in that montage. So please, if there was another good one, fire that off in the chat and I'll get it pulled up on screen. But Billy then devises a plan to sneak into Agatha's home. You get to see that whole interaction from his point of view, which is funny. There are lots of inconsistencies in what Agatha was hearing and what Billy was saying. For instance, he's much more snarky. Is what she's hearing is him being a brooding teen, snapping back. I think she says, "What were you looking for in my house?" And he said something like the respect of your peers or something. But what he had really said was, "Well, I had this probably horrible idea to walk the witch's road, and you're the only person I know that has walked it." I'm paraphrasing this, but he was not. He was nervous and maybe trying to lighten the mood with some jokes. But what she heard was a snarky, angry teenager. You get to see the moment of him pointing out that she's showing a photo of daisies. Huh? Pushing up daisies? That it was. She thought it was a dead body. Okay, you get it. You're keeping up. I got it. Let's see what Headbug says. I love the retelling of how Agatha captured Billy, showing how much of an unreliable narrator she was under Wanda's spell. That's perfect timing for that comment. Yeah, I enjoyed that part of the episode as well. The other part of that sequence I enjoyed a whole heck of a lot was the continuation of the Ralph Boner story with her wearing the Boner family reunion t-shirt. Plenty of places have gone ahead and made this shirt already. That cracked me up. I mean, it's been 4 days, but man, they got it out quick. They saw the marketing opportunity there. And what I was watching a new Rockstars video to make sure there weren't things that I missed. And the Eric, I believe, the narrator there, I don't want to steal his joke. So it was just kind of debating out loud, was this a situation where the Boner family bought into their last name and just made it a joke, or was this some lovely, naive great aunt or grandma that didn't see the joke when the family was having their camping trip reunion? So that a little bit of comedy there that I enjoyed because it was well timed and it wasn't in a moment where we should all be fearing for the health of the main character. We know how that one plays out. So the point of that scene is to get new information about the state Agatha was in and what Billy's perspective was. So we knew there was no inherent danger. So great time for a laugh, in my humble opinion. And so we have the rescuing of, well, maybe that's not in quotes. We have the rescuing of Agatha, and as Headbug pointed out, the capturing of Billy. And now we're just about all caught up on the flashback side of things, and we have Agatha that has returned from the depths of the mud on the Witch's Road. And for now, it sounds like Lilia and Jen weren't able to survive, with Agatha being a stronger character, although she's limited in her power currently, but also having the knowledge of how to survive the road. Maybe this wasn't the first time she fell into that quicksand, and so it was something that she was able to navigate, whereas the other two are truly gone. I operate under the assumption that everyone we've lost, at least on the Witch's Road, will come back in one form or another, even if it's just as an obstacle in that final trial. I could see that happening. But as of right now, it's just the two of them. Shout out to Bill Withers. And they have their argument. I keep wanting to call him Teen, even though he's Billy now. Billy is ready to leave Agatha behind. I don't need you anymore. And then he goes to do his WandaVision hand movements, and nothing works. And an interesting fun fact that many channels have already pointed out, but in case you missed it, they Joe Locke worked with the same choreographer that worked with Emily Olsen to get the uh, Wanda hand movements. So they put in the extra effort to make sure that his magic looked a lot like his mom's. I love those little attention to detail, especially on a series piloted by a studio and platform that is known to not pay attention to these things. So when we see a Disney run show that is paying attention to detail, it hits so much harder. I think that's why one of the reasons why people liked Loki more than the rest of the batch. And if you are someone who liked Moon Knight, I end up most episodes I like. I would say I like Moon Knight more than I dislike it, and I like it more than a lot of the bullshit Disney has propped out. There's a lot more of that attention to detail, and you can still serve the wider audience and use your backgrounds, use your settings to give us nerds a ooh piece of candy moment. You don't have to uh, be heavy-handed with your dialogue or even how you handle the character, which is something we'll talk about a lot in the second half, because I think Penguin does some great things with the character of the Hangman, Sophia Falcone, that subverted the expectations of comic book readers in a good way, but still also provided something that you don't have to have read a single fucking Batman issue to appreciate. And that's encapsulates kind of what I was trying to say there. So we have our little argument, and they both realize, they being Billy and Agatha, they're going to have to move forward together. But Billy does not trust Agatha, and he wants her to know it. So that sets the table for the next episode, which comes out on Wednesday. So before we end up pivoting to the other show, would love to hear from you in the chat if there was a scene or a section in the show that I missed when we just went through all of that stuff, and any thoughts and ideas you might have about the remaining episodes in the season. I have really tried to avoid watching the trailers for each episode. That's another thing that Disney does. I don't think it's just them. I've seen Prime do these things as well. Um, when you get a trailer in between each episode, generally speaking, I just try to avoid those because I like just making the theories based on what we have seen. And again, we're the group that reviews previews, okay? So I know for a fact that there could be scenes in that trailer that are not going to wind up in the final cut, and it may just go ahead and reveal a detail. It might just tell me too much. So often these trailers tell us too much about what's going on, and I don't want it to be ruined. I don't want a moment that could be delicious upon my first viewing to be wasted uh, in the appetizer of the trailer. Like, no, I will wait. I'm going to sit out. I'm waiting for dinner. I'm not going to fill up on bread first. So let me know if you think that's something I should change, either for this show or other shows. I don't mind doing it for you. I don't mind doing it for y'all so we can do more theory crafting. But if you are someone who has already watched the trailer for the next episode, has some thoughts, I'd love to hear your theories. We mentioned mine early, and Headbug touched on them as well. Oh, you know what? I forgot. Let's finish this thought here, but we do need to go back to one more thing. I'm glad we checked the comments here. That's his true intention, Billy's, to find his twin brother. I think the road will reveal where Tommy is. So that's sort of where I see this thing going. Another detail that is kind of laid out throughout the telling of this episode is how much of the road seems to be based on Billy, and the settings and stuff. How it's got a lot in common with Billy specifically. It's not just that, every each trial is more aimed at that particular witch, but the road itself, and just the general settings do have a lot of references to the stuff Billy was into, both as Billy Kaplan and continued as Billy Maximoff. So we have that. I think that is where we are going all around. And now we need to go back to the Black Heart situation. I almost forgot to come back here. So this is good. I'm going to read this comment first. Going back to the sigil, we didn't see the sigil being active around Rio, but she never asked who he was either. So it's possible she knew his identity. There is a link to Rio with the Black Heart again. And that was an interesting one that popped up, because when I saw that Eddie had sent a text, this is what happens in part of the flashback. I believe it's after they go meet Ralph Bonner. We'll say that, make our life easier. They have a text exchange. Billy says, "Thanks for protecting me," or being there to protect me, something along those lines. And Eddie responds with, "You're my," and it's a black heart emoji. So it could be exactly as Headbook says here, a link to Rio with the black heart. Another thing that I'm wondering, was Rio's black heart comment a red herring, where, because the reason, for those who have forgotten the detail, the reason we're all operating under the assumption that Rio has been the black heart on the outside of the fact that she came in when Mrs. Davis died, and she is in fact part of the coven. So it felt like once that happened, it was fulfilling our theory. It was confirming our theory that Rio is Black Heart, because she referred to I have a black heart and it beats for you. But potentially now, with Eddie calling Billy his black heart, maybe Billy was the fifth member of the coven the whole time. And Rio is here because the group foolishly tried to bring in another witch to replace Mrs. Davis, Sharon. Again, because of Agatha's deception, she's the one who's been lying. Uh, Lydia wrote out the list through a divination, but we've also seen she doesn't remember those when they happen. So she doesn't know that she made the list. And it could be that they were all misinterpreting this based on what Agatha gave them, and that their coven has been complete the whole time, and Rio is an outsider at this point, not technically part of the coven. So I don't know. I'm not saying that way is the correct answer either. It's just now interesting, a little bit more fun, I think, to watch it, knowing that now both of those characters have a link to the Black Heart. So it could be revealing something to us about either one as it goes along. And so yeah, we've got that one. Appreciate that. And I think that is everything that I have for this episode as I look over my notes. So one last time, final warning, Agatha fans, to get any thoughts out there. Now, I will say, if something pops up while we're talking Penguin, I will probably just star it, and we can come back on the outro and address those things. So if you get here, or if you just got here and you have no idea what we just said about Agatha and you want to hear something, still fire it off in the chat. But we are getting ready to make that pivot to the dark and now dank streets of Gotham City and Penguin. So final thoughts on Agatha. Once again, I'm enjoying this show. There's a lot of mystery, as we just kind of talked about, with who could be doing what is the overall goal. But this reframing of the show around Billy Maximoff, I was something that I enjoyed, and I enjoyed it just as much in the Penguin. So I don't I'm just thinking about this. I don't think I've been giving any sort of numbered scores for episode reviews. Maybe that'll be something we take into account. I'm going to make sure that my movie reviews are on a scale that matches with what Letterboxd does. So it'll probably be a 10-point score with only half point increments. So that way it will still all match Letterboxd. But as of right now, I haven't been giving rankings or ratings numerical value to these episodes. So I don't know that we'll do that yet. Again, I like the show. And I think if you're looking for something to watch, it is something you can get caught up on pretty quickly. We're not too many episodes into this bad boy yet, and you'll be ready to go by the time it's over. So I suggest it. Gets the dweeb stamp of approval for now. So let's do it. Let's pivot. Now is the time to talk about Oz. So we've got the spoilers. We're going to move me up this time so you can see this little guy down here at the bottom right next to our dweeb logo. That's Oz the driver. And then we get, of course, at the top right, we have Sophia when she enters her main character form. It's a lot like a Frieza transformation, except it doesn't take 42 minutes and 2 episodes to accomplish, but still pretty good. So, obligatory plot layout time will be here. Let me make sure. I think any of the questions I have, we will just get to as we unfold this plot line. And yeah, that's what we're going to do. So, this episode, much like the most recent episode of Agatha All Along, is a flashback heavy episode, and it focuses around Sophia Falcone and what happened to her before the events of the Penguin. So again, this is so fitting somehow. You almost want to believe that the studios and the showrunners planned this, because we got what, 3 episodes of Agatha at once, and we have 1 episode of Penguin at a time. So the fact that they're not at the same point in their run episode wise, but as far as release dates go, they're telling very similar stories, and I think executing both well, and they're completely different types of stories. So this episode was a lot of fun to put together and do the research for. We begin things with Sophia's point of view of how the last episode ended, which was Victor going full Walter White and running down Maroney's men with his car. And we see the discussion that was had prior to that, where Penguin now really caught in it, because it seems like that phone call that had been foreshadowed at the beginning of the previous episode between Oz and Sal Maroni must not have gone well, or it certainly led to the Maronis following Oz, and they are in on what's going on. So he has this moment where he says, "Just shut the fuck up." And you get the feeling that he's talking to Sophia and Mrs. Maroney at the same time. But once he realizes how much information Mrs. Maroney has, he completely sells Sophia out. And this was a moment, if you recall, I think the last thing she said to Oz before Maroney pulled up was, "I'm having a hard time trusting you," or "How do I trust you? I'm not sure how to trust you." And Oz says, "Well, let me keep showing you how." And then immediate betrayal after that. So she is injured in the fray. She gets hit in the head, and she's staring at Oz, pulling up her phone. And that is essentially why Oz told Victor to leave her, right? Oh, well, she's diming me out. There's no point. That ship has sailed. I've got no shot here of fixing things with Sophia. Let's leave. Maybe the Maronis will take care of this for me. But she calls Dr. Julian Rush, who will eventually come pick her up. She only is able to get out the words, you know, "It's Oz." I mean, she's not really able to give him much more detail than that. And the way I perceived this episode was that she gets hit in the head, she calls Julian, and then she passes out. And the flashback is sort of her dream recollection of how she got it was sort of like she's laying on a pile of trash with some blood on her temple, and you hear the Ferris Bueller. So I bet you're wondering how I got here. Uh, and then it's a flashback in time. The flashback begins with Sophia delivering a speech to a group of women, talking about a fund that her and her father put together to help women with mental disabilities, or just put there to help, because Sophia's mother had ended the game on her own. And so, in order to help women that might be going through similar things, wouldn't you know it, Carmine Falcone and his daughter Sophia ran this nonprofit and fundraised to try to help this out. So she's delivering a speech. There's a moment when she references her mother's suicide where you hear like some hushed whispering around. You can tell even back then, nobody believed that was the case. We'll see at some point that Sophia herself may have some doubts about that being the actual outcome. So she delivers her speech. She's done. A woman comes up and asks her to be part of another event. That woman, I believe it was Mrs. Hill. So that character in the comics is at least Mr. Hill is a lawyer turned mayor, I believe. In at least one iteration of Batman, he's in Falcone's pocket. So I do remember that. And again, I love this show's ability to include some of the lesser known crime family capos and stuff into this universe. It's adding a lot of depth to the show. And again, in that same way we said before, it's a member berry pop moment for a nerd like me. It doesn't do anything to take someone out of it if they're just here because they heard that this was Colin Farrell does a Sopranos. They can still enjoy that. They don't need to know or care who this Hill person is, but we like it. Those of us who do know, they didn't have to hammer anything home. So take notes, other showrunners that like to use comics as source material. This is a way you can please both audiences at once. It's well done. So we get another conversation before Sophie is able to make her way out, and it is the journalist whose name I forgot to write down now, but she's a journalist that was used in place of Vicky Vale. She's again been in the TV show, been in the animated series, been in some comics, and she is on top of whatever is going on with the hangman situation. You would like to believe, although you aren't told, that it's Detective Jim Gordon looking into these crimes, because we all know through the way this episode plays out that there's a lot of police still in Carmine's pocket. We remember Kinsey, who is in The Batman, another pretty accurate to the comics character, a dirty cop who alibis as a policeman. And Kinsey will be used in these flashbacks as well. So we were able to see that even back then, Kinsey was already in the pocket. That's when we meet Oz the driver as he helps get Sophia away. She immediately goes outside to smoke a cigarette, which I think is pretty interesting. A pretty interesting moment in this whole thing. You find out throughout the entire episode that Sophia just does not belong in this family. And it's not because she's a psychotic murderer. If anything, it's because she, throughout the flashbacks, is probably the only good person in the family. So for her just to be this normal kind of down to earth person who's in this uncomfortable red dress doing a speech that we know her father forced her to do, for her to then go outside and immediately light up a cigarette, I thought was another moment to try to humanize and get people to relate. Now, not everyone smokes cigarettes, but it's just a juxtaposition of this well-dressed, high-class individual smoking a cigarette right outside the front door. It's just it's a bit of a shock there, as far as it's not typically the type of behavior you would expect from that class of person, which I think was done it purposefully to show that she is different from them all. And we'll see a lot more to back that theory up later. So Oz is the driver. In this scene, we get Sophia again acknowledging to Oz, "Hey, this is a shit job, man. I get it. I'm sorry that you deserve better." Okay, so we see that they at one point had a relationship. She sticks up for Oz when Alberto calls him Penguin. There's a part in the flashback um, that we'll get to momentarily where she's asking her brother about some things, and I don't know, he spills something in the backseat and says, "Well, the Penguin will have to clean it up." And she says, "Don't call him that." So we see at one point in time these two were thick as thieves, and she had Oz's back, and it certainly seemed that Oz had her back. But from what we've seen so far, we have to just know at this point that there's a good chance nothing Oz says or does is genuine when it comes to Sophia. Even at that point in the story, he could be playing her. So we get to the reporter follows back up with Sophia. Sophia agrees to meet with this reporter who lays out to her the facts that she believes Sophia's father, Carmine Falcone, is in fact the hangman. Now, Sophia does as much as she can to run defense for this, but you can kind of see something about her believes it a little bit. And when she gets back to the car, she's clearly stressed out. Again, she sees some legitimacy to the claims. It's not what she expresses to the reporter. She tells the reporter, "If this is all you've got, fuck off." Essentially, this is nothing. You have nothing. So she does her job still, as far as the family is concerned. At least that's her opinion of it, right? She showed up. She said, "This, no, get away from me with this. This is awful. It's not accurate. Get out of here." But all Oz, the driver, sees is that Sophia met with the press. And Sophia is so upset about what she saw and how it relates to a memory she has from her childhood that when Oz tells her, "So, Sophia, you did the thing. You can't be talking to the press. What would your father think? He'd kill me. Sophia, you can't." She says, "Oz, you're my driver, so drive." She snaps at him. She's very rude. Uh, Something we know he does not take well, which we will need to go back to because there is a rhyme here between Sophia and Alberto and how things relate to Oz that I, again, think was done on purpose. But to keep things in order, we're just going to go through with the recap and then we'll come back to this. So put a pen in this for a moment. After the brief blow up between Oz and Sophia, or we things are just going to start to heat up. But to be honest, I can't remember. I mentioned this Alberto conversation. I can't remember if it happened. I believe it happens after she meets with the reporter. But one way or another, she asks her brother about this too. She says, this woman said these things. I don't even know if she tells him what she's heard. She does not, in fact. She asks Alberto if her father has been dating any of the women that work at the club, whether it be the Iceberg Lounge or the 40 Below. And Alberto does not want to answer, and he doesn't answer. He kind of messes with her a little bit and doesn't give her any kinds of answers whatsoever. So we get to see that she's starting to believe that this might be the case. And later on in the episode, she's at an event, and her father is there, and she's very surprised to see that Oz is in the building, and he's dressed very well. And she kind of reprimands him. So we're like, "Oz, what are you doing in here? You're supposed to be waiting outside." And Oz says, "Sophia, your father, he wants to see you in his office now." Rutro, here comes Sophia up to Carmine's office, which we've already given this guy some credit. But my God, Mark Strong as Carmine Falcone is phenomenal. I think he's better at it than John Turturro. And I'm probably repeating myself here. So forgive me frequent viewers, he's just a more serious threat to me, and some of this is due to previous castings. Mark Strong has played a badass gangster in several Guy Ritchie movies. Rock and Rolla was one of my favorite movies at the time that it came out. I loved the shit out of that. He has a great role there. He just knows how to come across as someone who would kill you. And in his role as, I believe it was Archie in Rock and Rolla, he had that vibe of everything he said was very smooth, and it could almost come across as polite if you didn't know better, if you didn't know that it was a threat. And I just think his portrayal of Carmine Falcone is so much scarier than John Turturro, and that's not really his fault either. Like, he was cast in the Transformer movies and had a very lucrative role, I'm sure, but it was pretty goofy. I mean, because he's got the chops for it. I think if Headbug is still here, I think it was Headbug. So, it might have been Kang. Someone mentioned Secret Window not too long ago when we were talking about Stephen King properties that got turned into movies, and I thought Johnny T was pretty scary in that role that he had in Secret Window. So I know he can be it, and I still think he did a good job. It's not like him being in that role in The Batman took me out of it. I still thought he played it well. I just think in this case, the recast is better. And it works as the story goes because so sorry, because he's playing a younger version of himself. I got like tape my hands together or something. I love to talk with my hands. Okay. I make big signs, small signs. Okay. Circles, wax on, wax off. I didn't mean to say that last part. We get back to the story we were at. So, Oz then has told Sophia, or told on Sophia. He told Carmine what Sophia was up to, and there's nothing Sophia can do really to get out of this one. She has her flashback where she talks about the day she found her mother dead and how there were scratches on her father's hands, and she's almost trying to convince herself again in that moment while also just looking for some kind of confirmation, some just anything to soothe her over from dear old dad as she talks about it and the mark on but it couldn't have been you. That couldn't have been what happened. It had to be an accident. It had to be something else. But you know I think even just saying that sealed her fate. And he is told she is told by her dad that Oz is going to take her home right now. And on the way home, wouldn't you know it, Kinsey shows up to arrest her for the murder of not only the reporter that was looking into her father, but the 6 previous victims that the reporter was looking into. So this is how Sophia becomes the hangman. She is dimed out by Oz and then turned over to her father. If you remember, and I skipped over this, there's so many details that we did skip over a couple things. There's a moment when the 3 Falcones are having a family meeting. So it's Carmine, his 2 kids, and Alberto's just being a screw up still. And after he leaves, Carmine tells Sophia he's going to hand the family to her. Obviously, this is much earlier in the flashback before she starts to realize what had been going on. And Sophia expresses doubt that the family would accept that. And Carmine says, they know you're mine. They'll do as I say. And goddamn if that wasn't the truth, because while Sophia has to sit in Arkham for 6 months, somehow, some way, despite having one of the richest families in the city, she is not only not able to go out on bail or on bond like somebody else might potentially be able to. Now, normally I would say in a murder case, you don't get that, but the fact that she has to go to Arkham and wait out those 6 months is also probably a little harsh, right? You're by right, just because you're accused of murder doesn't make you a murderer. You still get due process. Unless your dad runs the town and he's mad at you, in which case Sophia winds up in Arkham. They have a great scene where they just show how awful that must be for anyone who's had to do it. There's a nice uh, juxtaposition because she still has her well done, manicured and painted fingernails as she's sitting there in the jumpsuit and everything else is gone. And it's just, yeah, an image that you don't see a ton of in real life, and just scary. That scene got a little too real, to be honest. Because it is scary how really at any point in time that could happen to any one of us if the right accusations are lobbed at us by the right people who have the right amount of money. We could end up in a loony bin too. I shouldn't have called it that. That was very distasteful of me. My apologies. Arkham Asylum is a scary prison. Let's just say I was talking about the show. All right, it's a loony bin in the show. Let's just move on. So we get to see Sophia dealing with the horrible situation that is in the mental prison. She meets Magpie, her neighbor, who has just the most annoying voice you will ever hear. And she seems to be fully gone. We will find out throughout the course of this part of the flashback that she is taking the bliss, whatever that red drug is. She refers to it as candy. And she tells Sophia, you have to be good if you want to get the candy. And lines like this are what start to plant in Sophia's head that maybe Magpie is working for her father. She just can't trust anyone at this point. And even if they seem to be someone who is harmless and just struggling with some mental issues. She sees that any one of them could be a spy put there by her father to make sure that she looks crazy. And we see some of the abuse also likely doled out at her father's orders when another inmate is unchained and allowed to just beat the hell out of Sophia in the cafeteria, and no one does anything to help her. The rest of the women are all chained up, including Sophia, and the guards take far too long to get there. It certainly feels like a setup, and it will be confirmed as such later on when Sophia is brought back to the cafeteria and her attacker is chained up. And then not only chained up, but they chain her to one of the cafeteria table legs and toss a fork Sophia's way, essentially saying, "All right, there go get your revenge." And Sophia thinks about it, decides not to do it, but the inmate in question wanted things to end so badly that she picks up that fork and takes care of business herself, which could potentially be blamed on Sophia. There are plenty of witnesses there now that work for the asylum that are on the take that could say, "Oh yeah, she picked up that knife or she picked up that fork and she's the one who did that." But we find out that that frame job won't really matter when it comes to uh, showing that Sophia has lost it in while in Arkham. Around the time she speaks to Alberto and is told that the I think the case has been delayed and she's not getting a trial. The 6 months is over and it doesn't matter because she's never getting out, sort of thing. She has a moment with Magpie sitting at the cafeteria. Magpie mentions the candy again and how Sophia needs to be good if she wants any. And Sophia, as paranoid as she could be at this point, and rightfully so, was rightful in her paranoia, not rightful in her next action, which is to grab Magpie by the back of the neck and just start slamming her head on that cafeteria table until there is no more of Magpie. So that is essentially the birth of the Hangman. She finally is a little unhealthy mentally and very aggressive and a danger to herself and others. Harl says, no, the magpie thing was based. So, Harles, you might agree. The sound of that voice might have been enough to do it, huh? And throughout the Arkham scenes, we get a lot more insight on Julian Rush, who was her assistant doctor. The main doctor Dr. Ventress, which got me excited for all the wrong reasons. I was like, go Team Ventress. Wait, don't go Team Ventress. Don't do that. Bad call. Dr. Ventress is, of course, the evil doctor who's in on the whole scheme. Dr. Rush, a few different times, shows some humanity as if he wants to stop these unfortunate tests that they do on her, the different electroshock therapy and all that stuff. And we find out that eventually he would quit because he couldn't stand it anymore. Something that Sophia, from her perspective, at least initially, kind of reads as a betrayal to her. But for him, the only thing he could do was walk away from that and not do it. Now, I still think there's more to this guy than meets the eye. I think it, as far as candidates for who's behind Bliss, we have our usual suspects. Scarecrow is Doctor Strange, Dr. Hugo Strange, the new leader of Arkham. Like, who took over? Dr. Ventress isn't there. Julian Rush isn't there. But Sophia's connection to this drug is through Arkham. So who is still there that she's working with? I still think that may be a Scarecrow or a Hugo Strange situation. So Julian Rush is off the hook for now, as it goes with my theory crafting. I'm no longer certain that he is Scarecrow or someone working with him. But I still think there's something weird about that guy. He definitely seems to be in a state where he wants to control Sophia. I don't know if it's just like a weird lust thing and he just like really loves her or whatever, or if there's something more to it. But it's a little weird. It's just a little too weird. What does Harl say here? I would have done it earlier, honestly. I'm impressed with Sophia's restraint. Funny enough, so Sophia's actress was actually Serena's VA in Venture Brothers. Oh, I did not know that. That is dope. Every day's a school day. Thank you for that one, Harls. That is awesome. Okay, so now we get to, I may have missed a couple of things in the flashback, so forgive me. Fire away in the chat if I did miss it. But we get sort of back to the present day. Sophia shows up at a dinner party, a family meeting, if you will, in the most unusual of settings. That whole family actually meets at Carmine Falcone's house, and there's this great touch where she takes the head of the table that is open, probably in honor of Carmine, and behind her is a portrait of the Falcone family, with her being a young girl at the time. And it's just interesting. She's the only one of the family left standing and then eventually sitting in front of that portrait. Um, Technically, like, they're all in her house, right? I would think. You would think Carmine would leave that to his children, but who knows? Not clearly not father of the year candidate here, Mr. Falcone. This speech, this whole moment was to me when it was just the presentation to us of our new main character. This is the person you're going to be rooting for to win from now on. That's what I felt during that. I thought the speech was incredible. She did such a great job. The way she had like perfect uh, emphasis and everything, like her dictation, like the way she hit every single syllable of every victim's name, it just, you could get across without it being said that, she repeated those names to herself time and time again so she would not forget. As she said, their names should be heard, they should be remembered. And so that, filling the wine glass all the way to the top, so when she clinks it doesn't even make a sound. Just as she just killed it. I wonder how many takes that took, but she was, as the kids say, she was in her bag for that one. And what came after was a huge wow moment for me for the series. We've seen some back and forth throughout the show of Sophia interacting with the other women in her family. As we find out in the flashback, everyone in her family wrote letters to the judge saying that she was a psycho, that she had harmed animals as a child. even the same a female cousin that had asked her to go to Italy with her, even Johnny Viti, all these people that she thought were there as her family, uh, all turned on her to make sure that Carmine didn't put them out to pasture. So, she has this moment where she hates every single one of these people. They all screwed her over. And then when she gets out, whenever she has interactions with her little niece or second cousin, the adults are all treating her like she really is a crazy person and she can't be allowed near the children. Now, back then, when you saw that, you probably thought, "Oh, well, she's the crazy lady." Naturally, they all think she's a murderer. Of course, they're a little held back. But the reality is they all know they're the ones who fucked her over and put her there incorrectly, unjustly, and she's had 10 years to stew on it. So they are probably rightfully, "Oh god, my kids shouldn't get near you," but it would be more of a revenge thing than like this lady's just wacky. And I loved how she was able to get her alibi and save the young girl in her family who was completely innocent in all this by telling her the story about her and her brother sneaking into the greenhouse to eat cake because the little girl wanted some cake, but Sophia had just shown up. Things were about to get real. So the daughter her mother rushes her out, and so we see this moment where Sophia is bringing her out, telling her this story. And when the girl wants to go back in, Sophia won't let her, and she tells her a little story. She kind of convinces her that she's going to stay out there tonight, eat the cake, and sleep out in the greenhouse. And that's when stuff gets wild. Let me check on chat. What up, Kang? Good morning. And there you go. Yeah, Harl says this part was confusing to me because why are they still treating her like a maniac after Carmine is out of the picture? Yeah, the only thing I could think of is that they're worried that she did get a little crazy while she was in there, and they know that's their fault. So maybe they're just like, oh, she might actually do something to me now. But yeah, it's that's the only thing I could think of. It is an interesting detail that it was a great red herring, I guess, or maybe it wasn't. I don't know. I feel like I got to go back. They definitely threw us off the scent, but was it in like a Saw 8 way where they just pan out and like, oh, this person was actually here the whole time? Or was that part, or, was that behavior thought of ahead of time and it's all done for a reason? So interesting to see how that stuff will play out. But I paused before we got to the big reveal because by the time this episode is over, it began with Sophia absolutely not being the hangman, but it ends with her being the hangman and then some. I believe this body count now will be higher than anything she put out in the comic book run. So we get just an awesome scene of her wearing a gas mask, kind of dancing around the mansion, unclogging the vents that she had clogged up, checking in on everybody. Everybody is gone. We see that Luca Falcone's wife, one of the few nights she decided to sleep in her husband's bed. So wouldn't you know it, that would have been incredibly awkward if Sophia had walked into Viti's room and Luca's wife was still alive because she had snuck into Viti's room. Oh boy. So Viti is kept alive. I'm assuming she just left Alberto's window open, knowing Viti would be there, and he's going to be somebody that she, I assume, uses to cement her new position in the family because there will be other families you have to deal with. Not that I know. I don't know anything about the mob that hasn't been put on a Scorsese film. All right. I know nothing about these things. Pure speculation. But I assume there will be some other families in other cities that you had some business with, and you would need somebody who's actually been involved in the business to A, let you know who's doing what with whom, and B, to continue those conversations and not view this as, oh, the Falcons are out now, so it's time for us to take that turf. So Johnny V is going to have to serve a purpose. I can't imagine him being alive much longer than that purpose. The real question is, will Oz serve any kind of purpose to Sophia? Is she going to be forced to work with Oz again, or is it going to be just now a three-headed monster where we're going to have the Falcons, the Maronis, and then Oz is finally just going to get a few people in his own crew to attack the other two families. I'm not sure how this whole thing plays out, but I now that we got all that information about Sophia and it's sort of like reset the stage for the main confrontation. I'm very excited for tonight's episode. I hope it doesn't disappoint. Let's see. Oh, shout out to Stu getting in here, by the way. Love that. Appreciate you, Stu. Only an hour and 20 minutes into the show. Normally the show would be over by now. And Stu's like, wait, I'm sorry, boss. I'm sorry. We're here. Harl says, you might be right. She said something kind of spooky to the cousin about young women in the Falcone family. Okay, there we go. That I kind of forgot about that. VD seems like the easiest to leverage since Oz had doing that could yeah. Do it. Hey, we got to work with Johnny Viti. Sophia. It's the only way. All right, I'm going to get back to working on my penguin. Do it, dirt. The dirt. Got it. He talks like the CCR guy. I love it. And that really, it kind of, that's where our episode ends here. We've got the stage reset. We've got Sophia. We've got Oz out there with Victor as really his sole crew. And then we've got the Maronis who will certainly have it out for Victor. And I imagine this next episode is going to be pure chaos. And I don't know how Oz is going to navigate it. We've talked about this before. I still don't know where this show ends. I have an idea for what I think goes on in Agatha. I think they're going to get to the end of the Witch's Road. I think feel pretty confident in that. With Penguin, I don't know if this ends with Penguin cemented as the king of crime in Gotham, or if this ends as a tragedy of sorts with his death. Is he even going to be a part of the greater Batman universe going on for the Matt Reeves storyline? Because either one would work. There are plenty of other villains that franchise has not touched, at least in his corner of it. So there's no reason to assume like, oh yeah, Penguin's going to be a big bad in Batman 2. We don't know. He could be gone. That could be part of the narrative, is that the evil in this city is it's like a Hydra. You cut one head off, and you cut out one penguin, and Scarecrow and Hugo Strange arrive. Who knows? I'm not sure what they're going to do with it. You still have the Riddler in prison. You still have the Joker in prison. Based on I believe there may be some hints that Harley Quinn could be in prison already. So who knows? Those people are there. They could always come back out. So I'm not sure where this one goes, which is one of my favorite parts about it. We could have things completely flipped over on our head by the end of tonight's episode. I mean, they did a lot of that, like we mentioned before, just with Sophia. I mean, the ride of her story and whether or not she was a good guy or a bad guy, just in that 40 to 50 minutes, was a lot. They went a lot of places with it. So who knows what they're going to do with the next hour. I just know that I'll be there to watch it. And as we've previously stated, when we get done with both shows, we are going to have separate episodes to review everything. So that way we can spend 1 to 2 hours just on Oz, 1 to 2 hours just on Agatha. And hopefully by then, something new is out. We can keep the momentum rolling on this third live show. But in the meantime, I appreciate what? I am having a stroke. I smell toast. Oh no, we got to get out of here. I appreciate all of you. It's what I get for trying to read chat while I speak. 'Twas Agatha all along. Harl says, I don't even care. This stands alone so well. Yes, that I agree. One of the notes we had from before about both these shows are doing it well, whether you have the love or information from the comics or not. Now, I do think for Agatha, it's probably, I don't know, more tuned in to fans of at least the MCU, if not comics in general. But again, it's a lesser known comic characters that they're playing with here. But this Penguin show, would be great if it was just called Oz. Like if it was about Oz Cobb and you changed Falcones and Maronis to other things and still did all the things that they've done, I would still be here for it. So I tend to agree with that. The Batman stuff is just a bonus for us Batman nerds who are like, oh my God, look at all this additional depth we get to this universe. It's a lot of fun. But I see that my internet now is also getting a little jumpy. So that must be a sign that it's time for me to shut the hell up and give you all your Sunday back. It's 3 minutes to noon on my clock. So I hope your morning was great and you have a great rest of the Saturday afternoon and evening. Shout out to everybody in chat today. We had Headbug, Zach, and Wade. Don't forget Carnage Media. Go check out Zach and Wade. They're doing some great work. We also have Harls in the chat and Kangalope. So I appreciate all of you guys. Stu trying to make up for lost time, putting out 3 alerts in 10 minutes. We can't do better than that. It's Sunday. Was I saying it's Saturday? Damn it. It's been a long, long week for me, clearly. I got to get out of here. I'm screwing things up, but I appreciate you all so much. We will catch you next time. We'll see you Monday. How about that? Oh, preview reviews coming this afternoon. Creep tapes tomorrow morning. Nosferatu. More to come after that, but those are the ones that are finished and locked and loaded. What up, Anthony? Thank you for showing up. I just found out it was Sunday, apparently, so I've got a lot to do. You liked the last Agatha episode? I did as well. So when you have some time, Anthony, if you want to check out that first half, we went a little longer than we normally do today in general, but spent a good 40 to 50 minutes on Agatha this week. So check that out. All right, I mean it this time, gang. I am out of here. You guys have a great rest of your day.